Okay.
Hi, Dr. Jim Willie. Welcome back to Free the Money. It's always an honor to have you on the show.
Well, it's good to be here. I tell you, the heat is here, and the nation is under heat too. I believe that we are smack dab in the middle of a national transformation. I don't like the word revolution because that implies, bullets and blood and death. But we do have bullets. We do have erosion, if not deep damage of the middle class. And we do have disenfranchised, and we do have an invasion force. So, you know, these are dangerous times. These are extremely dangerous times, and I've got a theme that I will be expounding upon that we've been lied to. AI, artificial intelligence. Okay, we're being told. Okay, I'm going to keep this as a brief overview, Bree.
Yeah.
We've been told, hey, look, you can get free Grok or OpenAI or ChatGPT or Expedia, and it'll be free, and you can use it, and you can enhance your workplace. You can enhance your home office. You can do all kinds of interesting searches. You can do, you know, business creation strategies. You can do a lot of different things. But in the background, they're setting up the surveillance state. I thought for many months last year, this has a clear good side, but it has an unclear bad side, and it will be revealed over time. This is complicated. When we started to see encroachment and municipal obstacles for data centers, when we started to see massive increase in electric bills, when we started to see water shortages, and for me, an aha, I love that aha moment, aha, okay, was when Arizona instituted or implemented or began or started talking a lot with plans of like a dozen data centers in the desert. I mean, where's the water going to come from? So I started researching this, Bree, and what I've come up with is something that's quite scary. There's no doubt. I've got a friend, and he's done some remarkable things with AI. He's used it for some legal challenges and had a successful legal outcome with the court that was personal for him. And he's now trying to build a business with 7 employees, and each one's a bot, and he's in the center. I call it a constellation work chart, organization chart. We got a problem with water. We got a problem with electricity. We got a problem with land usage. Another, second stage aha moment was a month ago, where Nino Rodriguez, the boxer, in El Paso, he went out to the Rio Grande River and it was dry. And he said, this is usually chest high. And he said, if you want to know why, it's because Meta, which is Facebook, in New Mexico, I think he said it's 200 miles north of El Paso, and it drained all the water.
Wow.
What are ranchers going to do? Ranchers, fishermen, and city water supply operators, officials, what are they going to do? It's draining the water. I pointed out, I believe it was in the April newsletter, that China is building data centers underwater.
Yeah, I remember you said that on my show last time.
Whoa. For all the criticism, and I've got horrible criticism of the Chinese Communist Party, I don't want to get into the criticism. I'd like to point out that they're really good planners. I've got a friend who 10 years ago went to Shanghai. And he said, Jim, I've never seen anything like it in my life. 25 million people, a gigantic train hub, and you can go from Shanghai to any city 250 miles an hour on a high-speed train. We don't
Yeah.
have anything like that. What we
No.
have is California and a high-speed train project
The
where
train to
5
nowhere.
billion or 8 billion is stolen by Newsom, and now he claims that he's being persecuted. Oh, give me a break. Give me a break, Newsom. I hope you end up at the end of a rope. Okay, back to the data centers. Okay, I'm going to just shout out the scariest parts that I've learned. They're using the fracking strategy that was 15, 20 years ago to acquire land. They're using small towns and rural areas that are not well defended. If you look in the newspaper and you see, there are a few different, I don't want to mention particular names. There are a few cities. One is in particular is Manassas, Virginia. I featured that in the May report. It's the cities that are stopping them. It's not, rural New Mexico, 200 miles north of El Paso. Okay, so they're using the fracking strategy for land acquisition. That's one. They needed to buy a lot of land. Okay, I met one client, and they, the wife had property in northwestern Pennsylvania and eastern Ohio. And she said, Jim, I've got $5 million of fracking property, and I chose to take the buyout and not the income. And my brother took the income and not the buyout, and now he wishes he'd done. Okay, buying land. They're buying land.
Okay.
But they're not doing it in Boston. They're not doing it in suburban Boston. They're not doing it in well, they are doing it in suburban Virginia, like Norfolk and Richmond. It's DC. It's rural suburban DC, Washington DC, where they encounter problems with the cities. They're not getting any trouble at all.
No, when
When
you're
they're
in the middle
buying
of
some
nowhere, you're not going to have trouble.
abandoned farmland, ranch land, they get bought out, small town, Podunk, Missouri. Okay, they're not getting, okay, that's one big thing. It's the acquisition strategy for purchasing property. The other is, oh my gosh, Trump did an executive order and he declared the data centers to be military installations. Yeah. And there's a cover story that sounds good, and then there's a hidden reality that's a
Of
little
course.
scary.
And everyone's spidey sense should be going off.
Everyone's what?
Everyone's spidey sense should be going off right now.
Spidey. Okay,
Yeah.
Spidey.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not a common. Yeah, I know what you mean. So with declaration of a military installation for the data center, we now have the promise of very limited fraud, NGO-related fraud. Fraud in programs like welfare, Social Security, you name it. The fraud is going to be much less, and you're going to have fewer federal employees because you're going to have a military installation data center handling contracts. Well, that's good. That's good. But next door is a surveillance center. Okay, that's the problem.
We're living in a world where surveillance continues to expand and privacy tools are becoming more and more important. And I know some of these tools can be really complicated, but I'm here to tell you about something that is very easy to use. Financial privacy is extremely important, and that's why I want to tell you about Zano. So Zano is a private by default cryptocurrency where users' transactions are totally confidential, unlike Bitcoin. So with Bitcoin is a public ledger where if somebody sends you money through Bitcoin, you are able to look up how much money they have in that wallet address, and you're able to see other interactions they've had. With a private cryptocurrency like Zano, this is not the case. You're not able to find out any information. And this is very important today and especially in the coming years. The co-founder of Zano was actually one of the lead developers behind CryptoNote, which was the technology behind Monero, which is pretty cool. You can actually have so many different confidential assets on Zano. I'm able to take my Bitcoin and actually wrap it into a private version that lives on Zano. so that I'm able to have all of the privacy features of Zano. I'm able to do this with a lot of other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum and Solana, and this is basically a way to wrap that asset to where it keeps the likeness of Bitcoin, meaning the value and the scarcity of Bitcoin, but it lives on Zano. This is a very, very cool feature, and I have done this with some of my Bitcoin. If you want to buy Zano, one of the most popular exchanges to buy Zano is Mexi, and I would recommend using a VPN. You can also find a full list of exchanges at zanolist.com/exchanges, and I'll have that link down below, as well as some other information about Zano.
Okay, that's another thing. There's more. There's more. There are this is not clear. Breathe. This is difficult area because they're working. The elites are working in secrecy. They're working in hidden manner. They're working in stealth. Okay, there are indications, and this has to come out as verified or not, that many of the data centers will be declared sovereign entities. So it might be in New Mexico, Arizona, or Virginia, or Missouri, but you can't do any kind of a legal challenge because it's a sovereign nation,
Okay.
sovereign entity. Okay, what that does is it removes all the different legal entanglements from the communities and the state. Okay, so if a data center has acquired land, and that's all locked into a contract, and the entity is sovereign, it doesn't matter what the state of Missouri says for laws. Doesn't matter. They just proceed. Worse, they will have first rights to water. They will have first rights to electricity. Now, Trump said in a promise a year or so ago, maybe more, he said, we're going to have the data centers supply their own electricity. That has not quite happened. And if they do supply their own electricity, they're going to be competing for the electric supply input source. So they'll drive up the natural gas price. So the household electric plant will be competing with the data center for the same natural gas, and the price will go up because of the demand at the data center. Okay, just some quick numbers. A medium-sized facility will require 100 megawatts, which is 100 million watts. That's for equivalent to 80,000 homes. A larger one will require 500 megawatts, or half a gigawatt. A megawatt is 1,000,000 watts, a gigawatt is 1,000,000,000 watts. Okay, so a large campus would be 500 megawatts, equivalent of 400,000 homes. And they've got larger facilities. Okay, these are going to be windowless, doorless installations. My guess is they'll have underground access.
Yeah.
Maybe a block away, there'll be an underground sort.
Yeah.
This is 94. This is 1984.
How many data centers do you think we have in Virginia right now? I know that's one of the bigger hubs.
The plan is 600.
Wow.
Now, how many do they have right now? I would guess they have maybe 30, 80, 100. I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
They're being obstructed by the cities. They're not being obstructed by small towns and rural areas.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
If you're, okay, now, I have something that I want to explain. These are the various functions that the data centers will gather data on: browsing history, locating, tracking, facial recognition and biometrics, Google and online search queries, all your history, purchase history for shopping, financial data, banks, etc., brokerage firms, social media, license plate, camera feeds, phone and text metadata, WhatsApp and text messages, phone messages, smart home and IT data. Okay, this is all coming to a data center near you. Okay, all right. There's more.
They have all of our information. They have everything now. Our deepest thoughts. They're basically like our therapists.
Yeah, my joke is if they want to watch me in the bedroom, they can watch, an old guy do his best, If they want to watch me take a leak, fine. I wish I could piss on their leg. Okay, But, I'm trying to be cute, but this is dangerous. And for
It's
those who don't know it,
extremely dangerous.
electrical outlets are listening posts. So they're all over your house, your television, your smartphone, and your smart television. They are monitoring devices. They are both directions if they want. Okay, here's another thing. This is probably the worst of all. Who's going to fund? Two sources of funding for data centers. Okay, one is the big companies, like Facebook and Google and Microsoft and
Amazon.
and BlackRock and a few others. All right, so the FANG mats, right? The FANG mat, Magnificent Seven, but not Tesla. I'm sorry, maybe not Tesla and not Netflix. No, I just can't see that. But it's bigger than that. It's Broadcom and Oracle on top of the FANG mat. Okay, FANG mat is narco money. I'm sorry to keep harping on this, but Langley and the Swiss National Bank found a way to divert narco money into the stock market, and they created the Magnificent Seven. And there's no investigation of sources of money for all these trillion-dollar companies.
I would actually like to touch on a point. I think I emailed this to you. I'm just curious of your thoughts if this is similar to the dot-com era with how we're seeing this money recycled. We saw that like Microsoft invested roughly $13 billion into OpenAI, and then that money effectively was recycled back into Microsoft's cloud business. And we're seeing this again and again, I think with Anthropic and Amazon as well. What do you think is going to happen? Is this going to be similar to, I guess, previous bubbles?
Well, that's another point that I'd like to bring up, but let me finish this one. 401ks by BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are going to be funding the data centers.
Without us even knowing.
Well, yeah, but our retirement funds will create the installations for the surveillance state of us. That's obscene. Okay, now we agreed for diversified investments. That's in the fine print of 401k documents that you sign when you begin a job, when you begin your diversion for, what do you call it? Pre-tax investment in a 401k. We did not agree to AI centers. That's part of diversified, but Big Brother is not part of the diversification that I particularly like.
I know Dr. Jim Willie was talking about how basically with your 401k, you're going to be investing into the surveillance state. And a lot of people obviously don't want to be doing that. So I want to tell you about a company that I've used since 2021. It's called I Trust Capital. I was able to take my IRA and roll it over into a crypto IRA. And you're able to do this with your 401ks and IRAs and everything. And you're able to invest in assets that Dr. Jim Willie loves, like XRP and XLM, into an account that you have full control over. And you're also able to invest in assets like gold and silver and stocks as well. So definitely check that out because you do want to have more control over your money. This is a really good option to be able to buy XRP and XLM. I'll have it linked down below.
Okay. Now, back to the bubble issue. I knew before, and now I know a little better. There's $2.7 trillion that has been reduced. Let's just call it the Magnificent 7 plus 2, okay? It's Facebook and Google, et cetera, but also Oracle and Broadcom. They're involved in the data centers, okay? It's not just FangMat, not just the Magnificent 7 plus 2, okay? Their combined market cap has dropped $2.7 trillion in June.
Yeah.
Okay, Microsoft was the worst hit. It's $550 billion drop in market cap.
Wow.
Okay, we are no longer, Bree, in the zone where you can say AI, and NVIDIA is in that too, to make it 10.
Yeah.
We're no longer in the zone where potential profit is driving the stock price. And NVIDIA saw a tremendous stock price. I don't want to get into SpaceX. I just rather
Yeah.
not touch on that because
Okay.
it's an entirely big separate story.
That could be an interview of itself.
I'm not sure I'm an expert in it, so I wouldn't be a good guest. Um, the Magnificent 7 plus 3, NVIDIA, Broadcom, Oracle, they're now seeing their stock price decline because they're running low on cash. They call it hyperscale. They call their cash flow hyperscale. It's a strange word, but what it means is, what is their cash flow after these gigantic outlays for a data center? Billions in outlays. What is your cash? How's your cash flow? Well, they're running dry. They're running low. Some companies are worse off than others. So their stock prices are taking a hit. It's like, okay, show me the profit you've been talking about for 2 years. Now you're running low on cash. Show me the profit and your stock price can get elevated again. Okay. We're in a state of flux right now with the companies, the big tech. They're big tech. And big tech showed us 5 years ago that they're not our friends. They were doing, censoring on data searches, queries. Is the vaccine safe and effective? Fuck no.
Or even election fraud. Yeah.
Election fraud. Okay. We're getting a lot of resistance at the municipal levels for the data centers, but I don't think it matters a twit. They'll just find a rural area in Virginia and continue. North Virginia is nothing but a data center factory. Southern Ohio is another center for a lot of data centers. Gosh, I did a consult, Bree, about 2 years ago with a couple in Cincinnati, outside Cincinnati. They said, Jim, we got 3 or 4 solar farms nearby here, and they're talking about data centers. In Northwest Pennsylvania, there's some data centers. Okay, can you name a single city in Northwest Pennsylvania? Try. Go ahead, try.
I have no idea. I think I've been to
Okay,
Pennsylvania.
Erie. Erie's in the corner.
Good.
That's the upper corner by the lake. Okay, I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm from Pittsburgh area. I lost my accent in college. I had a year of a dedicated attitude of losing the little bit of the Pittsburgh accent. Dan Marino of the Miami Dolphins, he still has it. Okay, but all right, you go north to Pittsburgh and you get Meadville, and you got nothing all the way to Erie. Okay, that's fertile ground for data centers, and all they do is connect it with electric wires. And oh my gosh, okay, these things are going to drain the water and they're going to drive up the electric costs. But I've heard from a military source, buddy of mine, contact of mine, the United States is building data centers underwater in the ocean. I'm trying to find out where. I'm guessing Southern California. I'm guessing. I don't know. I'm guessing somewhere off the Florida coast, probably the Gulf Coast because it's calmer. I don't know about the Virginia coast.
What about Hawaii?
It could be Hawaii, but we've got to have them nearby because of the transmission. What else is there? We're going to see $7 trillion of investment in data centers by the end of this decade. $7 trillion. They use an enormous amount of our electricity. Gosh.
So
Between 8 and 12% of the national electricity supply in 2 years. Okay, how many people do you know saying I'm dealing with really high electric costs for my home? Okay, that's not going to get better. Go ahead.
Yeah, unless we go to alternatives. But I guess I'll ask this question again. I know we were talking about this a little bit over email, just how we went from, I guess, the profit-making machine from the military-industrial complex to now this technological industrial complex. Are we seeing almost like a civil war and how we are going to be profiting? And is that why Trump is kind of putting an end to this war and why now AI is going to be even more propped up? And that's what we're going to be focusing on rather than just these endless wars.
Well, the first issue is the bubble, the debt bubble.
Yeah.
I believe the AI sector or niche, whatever you want to call it, it's going to become so big that niche won't fit as a descriptor. I think it will survive a debt event, a
Okay.
debt. I don't want to call it a crisis, just a debt write down, a debt event, a debt rewriting, a debt refinancing. And don't be surprised if the government comes in and says, we'll cover like $1 trillion of your debt. Who cares if it goes from 38 to 39 trillion overnight? Who cares? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's no
Okay,
different.
but there's another angle to this, and it is the Gulf region Emirates and Royals. They've already promised. I think I read that it's something like $2 billion. No, that's a small number. A big amount of money from I think Qatar. But the Gulf Royals are going to be involved in this. Okay, so
And
there's
you're saying that they're going to be funding more tech companies in America, or what?
more what companies?
You're saying that Qatar is going to be funding tech companies in America, or what were you saying?
Data centers
Okay, in America though.
in the United States,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, so you got to be concerned about back scratching.
Yeah.
Okay, if Qatar invests billions in data centers and helps with the funding, or covers some of the debt so we don't get a debt bubble collapse, what do we promise them? Military coverage, that
Mhm.
sort of thing.
What we always do.
No sanctions, protection for the ships that go through the Gulf, Hormuz Straits.
Or even because wasn't Qatar funding Hamas to an extent, or not Hamas, Hezbollah, sorry.
Well, you got the Hezbollah, you got the Brotherhood, and you got Hamas. I can't
Okay.
keep them all
So I remember
straight.
hearing
Yeah,
a lot of chatter
yes,
online
they
about
are.
that.
They are.
Yeah.
Qatar is involved. They got a foot in each pond. So you got, and their risk is that each side can attack. Not each side is their friend. Each side can attack.
Yeah.
And that's a very dangerous place to be. I don't want to get involved in that, but it is a factor. I think the tech complex is going to become dominant. Right now, let's just call it tech telecom, telecom tech and services. It's as big as the entire technology sector right now. Okay, you're seeing I have a graph. I don't have it on the tip of my tongue. I don't know exactly what it was, but right now that whole sector is up like to 35% of the S&P as a
Yeah.
percentage.
Yeah.
And it's overtaking the standard tech. We're seeing a transformation of our economy. It's not just a digital transformation with crypto and blockchain and neutral bridge settlement like XRP. We're seeing a technological revolution, transformation with robotics. I just saw Elon Musk promise that Optima Prime, or Optimum 5, Optimum Prime, I can't remember the exact name. There's so many names with these new technologies and products. But what he's promising is a robot. He said it's going to have complete hand dexterity.
Oh, yes, yes.
Complete hand dexterity. Oh, I love doing this. General Motors just replaced 1,000 workers with 50 machines. Okay, remember a year ago we were told it's going to enhance your work, it's not going to replace your job? That was a lie.
Yeah.
I didn't believe it at the time. I knew that there was some validity to that claim because there were many stories about a group of 10 that was moved down to 8 because they were given such powerful machines at their disposal, devices and programs and AI tools.
Could you see this leading to deflationary times?
That's a tough question. I usually ask people, please define your term. What do you mean by deflation?
Well,
Uh,
when
There are
products are
about 8
going
definitions.
Okay, well, obviously right now we're seeing times of great inflation where our purchasing power is getting us a lot less. I'm saying the opposite. to where people aren't working, but things are much cheaper. And that obviously has a negative effect on the economy as well.
Yeah. And you have, Warsh, the new Fed head,
Yeah.
um, saying things like, we're going to see some tremendous advantages with productivity and it's going to drive down price inflation. When I hear deflation, I wonder, are you talking about pricing of food and gasoline, food and fuel and medical services and insurance and things like that? Or are you talking about the stock market coming down in a big way on the indexes? Okay, this is very unclear. I don't believe that we're going to see a decline in price inflation for our typical basket of goods that we need to survive. Just like what I said, food, fuel, insurance, utility costs, electricity. I think electric's going to go up. I think food is going to go up this fall because of a poor planting season.
What if people go to alternatives for energy? I mean, so for me, a little bit about me personally, where I come from and stuff, and a lot of people do use solar energy, but they're completely off grid. They're generating their own electricity, completely independent of PG&E, to where they're able to provide for, like, let's say a homestead, a lot of energy. I'm not just talking about little houses. Why don't more people do that?
If that's more than 1 or 2% of California, I'd be shocked.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking, the technology is there, the capability is there. What about the people in Los Angeles? What about people in the hood? What about people in Inglewood? What about people in, Palos Verdes? I don't think so. Maybe a little bit. Is there subsidy for rooftop solar cells? Some. Will that be stolen by Newsom? Probably.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, the capabilities there. If more than 1 or 2% participate, I'd be shocked. I don't know anybody who grows his own food. I don't know. That's very good. Very good. I have a tip to provide you when we're done recording on food. I saw a remarkable video. Okay. The tech industrial complex, I believe, will overtake the government by means of the military.
Okay, interesting. So you're seeing them working together rather than
The data centers are going to become designated military centers, military entities, and that is going to. Okay, if they're not sovereign, they're going to be military, and the result is the same. You can't touch them. You can't enter them. You can't sue them. You can't block them from water access. You can't block them from driving up your electric costs. And good luck finding a window.
I guess my question is, though, if we're going from having endless wars, you can't have endless wars and also be thriving with new tech and having stability. So, like, the profits are changing from wars to now technology. I guess that's, maybe I didn't phrase that correctly.
Yeah, but you're leaving narco out of the equation, and everybody seems to do that, including some of my favorite analysts like Luongo, and I used to like Alistair McLeod. Hey, what about the trillion per year in narco? Oh, we can't talk about that. It's not that it's irrelevant and insignificant. Let's not talk about that. Okay, what is funding? Simple question. What is funding the Ukraine war? By NATO? What's funding NATO and Ukraine?
You're saying narco.
Yeah, narco. We stopped the funding. It continues. The Brits continue. What's funding London Center? Narco. What's funding Switzerland? Narco. Okay, I could go on and on. I'd rather leave that alone.
I would say also human trafficking.
Okay, it's trafficking generally.
Okay.
It's human trafficking. There's white woman adult trafficking also, and it's going on at the United Nations.
Yeah.
And there was a great movie. I saw it around 2000 and I think about 2009 or so. Rachel Weisz, she was a press reporter, and she unearthed UN, Eastern Europe, white woman slavery, trafficking.
Well, I mean,
Okay,
I was in the modeling industry for a long time. I saw
you
trafficking.
you saw.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
even in LA, I used to talk a little bit about I was invited to these poker games. I never went, but I've heard a lot of stories. It gives me chills even thinking about it. I was in some group texts and some of the stuff I heard, um, that I saw written with my own eyes is appalling. And it definitely happens. And I can't even imagine, um, even on a greater level.
For the people who are aware, Bree, it's 10 times worse. For the people who aren't aware and get a glimpse of it, it's 1,000 times worse. Okay, let's get on to some of the war issues, because we have a big drop of like $20 in the price of
Yeah.
oil.
Yeah. So
And
um, oil per barrel, what was it, like 110 at its peak, and now I don't know what it's sitting at
yeah,
today. I checked yesterday, it was like 77.
I saw 71 today.
Wow. Okay, I didn't check this
Today.
one.
Okay, I just wrote up a paragraph, so I have it fresh in my mind. It's the last chapter that I wrote this morning. I'm working on
Oh.
my June report. These things don't write themselves. I don't have
Wait,
an AI tool. Okay.
quick interruption. Subscribe to Dr. Jim Willie's newsletter. I will have it linked down below. His newsletter is so extensive. It is my favorite newsletter I read. I love newsletters. You have the best one. I actually took notes on your last one. Subscribe down below to support him. He does all these shows. It's the least we can do to support him and all the great work he's doing.
It's golden-jackass.com. Okay. Um, here's from memory. Between mid-May and mid-June, we were bouncing around between 90 and 105 for the crude oil. Now it's in the low 70s. We need an end to the Iran war. Let me go on a soapbox here, Bree. We need an end to the Iran war to bring down the oil price, to bring down the natural gas price, to bring down the fertilizer price, to bring down price inflation, to bring down distribution costs for trucking. We are at the edge of seeing many national trucking firms go bankrupt. Okay, we called a game of chicken against the Iranians, and the Iranians did something, according to a military source of mine. This is not on the news. They didn't stop production. They dumped oil in the Gulf.
Are you serious?
And then they threatened to light it on fire.
Oh my God.
Okay? So the game of chicken was not won by Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, even Trump came out and said, we can't afford to
We're out of
continue
time.
this war.
We're out of time.
Well, yeah, I mean, like we were running out, and he was very open about that.
Well, which means that we didn't meet our objectives for the war. I'm not sure we got a regime change with the Revolutionary Guard.
Going on with this whole memorandum.
This is very complicated, and I can't address all the parts because it's just so involved.
Okay.
But there's a promise of ending a nuclear program, and I don't think we can enforce that. We wanted a regime change where the Revolutionary Guard was no longer in charge. I don't think we got that. But there is a movement now inside Iran, and it has yet to be confirmed more conclusively, but some of the Revolutionary Guard leaders are being jailed, okay, for being oppressive. And there was a woman who showed her shoulder, naked shoulder, just brought the blouse down, and she was a singer. Now, you got to show the shoulder, Bree. Show the shoulder. Yeah, she did that, and she's now being subjected to 70 lashes. Okay, that's the kind of stuff that needs to end. Now,
Of course.
I've got it confirmed from an Iranian source, who's a friend of a colleague, that there were at least 50,000 unarmed protesters who were mowed down by machine gun fire by the Revolutionary Guard. Okay, they've got 20 cities. They got an 85, 89 million population. I don't know any Americans who can name more than 2 Iranian cities. Okay, we don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And these missile silos, these missile batteries, they're coming out of mountainsides. They're inside granite structures of mountainsides. we're bombing the hell out of the country, and all we show is explosion. We're bombing them into the Middle Ages. No, we're not. We're bombing empty buildings, and we're bombing some depots, and we're not stopping their missile capability.
Yeah. And then
I think,
didn't Israel violate this peace agreement by
yeah, I don't talk about them. Okay, Lebanon is a mess. Okay,
Yeah.
and let me just say that London has a connection, and they want endless war. What has the London Center done in the Middle East for the last 50 years? Constant war.
Chaos. Yeah.
And with constant war, there's constant military arms, weapon sales. Oh,
Can't we say the same about the United States, though? I think since our beginning, or almost 250 years, we've been in wars like 97% of the time. I think I read that yesterday.
yeah, only about 20 or 30 years we've not been at war. It's
Yeah.
what we're all about. Let me just say that because of the war situation, we're probably not going to get a rate cut, which is what Trump wanted. And I itch my nose when I talk. My nose hairs vibrate. It's very sorry.
Narco.
I've not done coke in my entire life. I've not done one line.
Let's get back to inflation. So you don't think that if oil continues to go down, this could be an excuse for the Fed to cut rates?
That we need the war to end for so many different things. Price inflation is foremost. Distribution costs, farming, planting, diesel costs. We have a low planting season volume, which means we're going to have some price inflation in about 2 or 3 months. The harvest is going to be less. We'll export less. We're ramping up production. We're like 10, 20% above last year in oil output. This is great. Okay. I had one colleague point out to me 2 years ago, Jim, we got 20 oil tankers off U.S. ports. They're loading up. They're for foreigners. We're getting credits. That's how we're paying for import supply. Okay. We are an exporting nation for oil. So if we cut out, let me mention a figure regarding Iran and China. 30% of Iran's exports go to China. 30%.
Yeah.
70% of what China imports is from Iran. So Iran is more important to China than China is to Iran, which is interesting.
Yeah, because China's been surviving. I thought this would affect China a lot harder than it has.
It has affected them. They're down a few million barrels per day in demand. And you can say, well, it's because they're going to electric this and electric that. That's not quite the story. I believe that the summit, we haven't talked since the Chinese summit by Trump. My firm belief is that he went to China to convince China to dump London.
Okay.
And by doing so, China would become the third empire. Okay, I believe in the Hamiltonian theory and the Promethean action group with Susan Kokinda and Barbara Boyd. I think they're a couple superstar genius ladies, and they're
and Rob Cunningham.
Okay, I didn't know his role with that.
Well, he's not involved, but he talks a lot about the city of London. A lot. He's right on. I would say he's right up there with the Promethean women.
That's great because he's got his foot in the crypto pond in a big way.
He's awesome. Awesome guy.
Yeah, he's very good. All right. The point is that I believe that the Donro Doctrine is going to clean up Cuba, which already started. Their reforms are already begun. I want to do a vacation in Veradero. Got a lot of hotels, but their resort is like a little separate community. It's a wonderful place. I have friends who've been there. Okay. The Donro Doctrine is going to open the door and lead the way for the American hemisphere to become an empire. Okay. Trump has already said, what is the Donro Doctrine? China and the Europeans cannot be dominant players in our hemisphere. Okay. We've interrupted the Venezuelan oil going to China. Next, we need to interrupt the silver and gold concentrate going from the Latin American Andes nations, including Mexico. We need to stop that from going to China. We need to bring that into the North American industrial sector. I believe Argentina is firmly on board. Brazil is not. Brazil is a BRICS nation. The B in BRICS is for
it's
Brazil, and they've got a Satanist leader who did a satanic parade after stealing the election 4 years ago from Bolsonaro and putting his family in prison, abducting his family, forcing Bolsonaro to do an exile to Miami. Okay, that is Lula. That is the satanic Lula of Brazil. That needs to be cleaned up. I think Trump has that down the road, maybe in a year or two, to clean up Brazil, and that's not going to be easy. Okay, the second empire is Russia. I think they're going to be aligned with Europe, supplying them as they're, on the edge of the abyss economically.
Okay.
And Trump is going to force some regime change, but we're not there yet.
Okay.
NATO is doing, drone hits of gasoline and diesel refinery centers, hundreds of miles inside Russia. NATO is not devoted to the United States.
How do we get this finished, obviously, before the next administration, or will the next administration continue this?
I think Vance will be a continuation of Trump, and I don't believe that the midterm elections are going to be very profitable or advantageous for the Democrats, because we're going to have a mountain of evidence surface for criminality, fraud, and treason. Not just Minnesota, but in your backyard. I think we got $100 billion of fraud from California, whereas Minnesota is like 10 or 12.
Yeah, no, it's nothing. California the fraud is so out of control. It's absolutely disgusting.
I mean, they talk about poop on the streets now. It's in open discussion. And did Karen Bass prevail through voter fraud? I mean, this is ridiculous, and California is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'd rather not talk about California. You got a few other points. I don't believe the ceasefire and the peace talks. I don't think they're going to be derailed, because Iran needs it to be resolved, and the United States needs it to be resolved. What's going to happen, I believe, is the little control country, they're going to be in focus as being a problem, and they might get attacked, and the United States might not defend. That would be a big deal. The United States not defending the little country.
I do also want to talk about the $300 billion Iran Reconstruction Fund. I mean,
it's Trump not going to come from the United States government.
Okay, because Trump is saying this is fake news, but I've seen this in the news a little bit. I was just curious your thoughts.
It's going to be a lot of foreign investment. It's going to be the Gulf Arabs, and that's how they stop the Iranian attacks on their oil energy infrastructure, their production facilities.
Mm-hmm.
The Gulf nations have promised to help Iran in reconstruction. There are going to be more nations. China is going to be involved. They've already been involved. Okay, few people know that China purchased oil from Iran at a discount to spot because of their investments in the Iranian economy. And that's been going on for over 10 years. I don't know exactly. I think India has promised some funds in Iran. India was receiving a lot of oil from Iran.
Okay.
It's going to be a lot of Arab nations.
Okay, that makes more sense.
And it might be some large multinationals out of the United States, but it's not going to be the United States government. Okay, CNN and a lot of the bullshit news in the United States, they just jumped on this with a false story.
Okay.
And they're shameful. We haven't seen any reform to the news. And, here's one reason why. The Rockefellers control the ad revenue for most of the news networks, most of the major networks, because of their drug ads. So we get filled with drug ads, and the networks can't live without the drug ads for revenue, so they can't go talking bad, nasty against the Rockefellers, the vaccines, the drugs, the medical. They can't mention cures for cancer. I think we're in for a bit of a renaissance in the next year or two. We got to be careful about Democrat treason, fraud, sabotage, and destruction. I don't know how this is going to turn out with the Democrats, but I've noticed an intensity increasing in the Congress against Ilhan, what's her name?
Yeah.
Omar?
Yeah, Omar.
Why can't they kick her out of the country? I don't know. I think there should be, if you're an illegal immigrant, you should not be able to serve in Congress. So we just need to prove that they're in the United States illegally, and then they're out of the Congress. Okay, we're seeing in England, just a brief mention, their nation is turned upside down. Keir Starmer, he didn't resign because of pressure from the Labor Party. He resigned because Trump showed him some Epstein files that are now going to become public. Keir Starmer, from what I understand, and it's just a partial story, needs to be confirmed, Keir Starmer was involved as a salesman for children and maybe more. He was selling them, and he protected them when they were under prosecution. That's why.
No, you're short on time today, so I would like to ask you about the new Fed chair, Warsh. I know we've talked about him a little bit in the past. He obviously had his debut last week. I'm curious about us having more of a silent Fed now, what this is going to signal. I saw that the 2-year Treasury ripped about 4.2% after Warsh's debut, and that was obviously above the Fed's own medium forecast. So I'm just curious about these new task force, and I guess what he's even going to do about inflation, if he's going to possibly redefine, I guess, how we even measure inflation.
Redefine. Do you remember 1997, 8, 9? Yeah, you're kind of young, right?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Okay. Robert Rubin redefined the calculation of this consumer price index.
Okay.
He brought in the hedonics, he brought in the substitution, and he brought in the geometric mean. The geometric mean is just like if you got 3 numbers, you don't add them up and divide by 3. You multiply them all together and you take the cube root. Okay? Okay, it seems like, oh, gee, that doesn't sound it is. I've done some examples. You have 2 numbers, then you got a big number where you take the geometric mean and it's not anywhere near as high as the arithmetic mean.
Okay, so this is essentially what Warsh would be doing to make inflation seem a lot better.
Okay. He said, I haven't appreciated or shown respect for the way they calculate price inflation. So what is he going to do? Bring in an AI productivity hedonic? That's what I think he's going to do.
Yeah, he's also talking about all this data collection.
Well, he can do a competent data collection of prices where he would find that the real inflation rate is about 8 to 10%, but I don't think he wants to go there.
No. I think he also doesn't want to include oil.
Let's cut out all the ones that are high.
Yeah.
Bree, I've been through the mill on this. I've seen calculations of consumer price index where 15 components were all over 5%. And it comes out as 3.2 on the average. This is nonsense. Okay, I'll say it again. I expect Warsh to come up with a recalculation of the consumer price index with an AI productivity hedonic that brings it down.
Okay.
Or we see a problem with failed corporations, failed trucking firms, and very high food prices. So we open the floodgates with household rebates, and we open the floodgates with interest rate drops. He just needs a clear path.
Yeah. And then once he has that, he'll be dovish, you're saying?
Yeah, I think he'll be dovish. He just needs a clear path, and he doesn't have one right now. He wanted to set the table, and we can only go below where he's set the mark right now. He set the level at a high mark. I'm not concerned about him saying we're going to have more secrecy or less open discussions with the FOMC. I don't care. I mean, what they usually say is a bunch of gibberish bullshit anyway. So what if we don't hear their gibberish? Okay. Did you ever hear anything intelligent from the mouth of Alan Greenspan? He's dead now. He served the Queen well. Okay, I didn't like Greenspan. I feared him. I didn't respect him. I know the Hebrew word of fear and respect is the same, but to me it's a little bit different. I was scared of the guy. I thought the guy had too much power, and he spoke an utter bullshit, nonsense, obfuscation. He invented the word obfuscation. I don't respect people who obfuscate. Okay, Warsh, I think, will turn out to be good. We need to give him time, let him work his magic, and let him react to the problems that arise, which I think will come in great number.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to see a drop in the official
Inflation.
nonsensical CPI,
Yeah.
and that'll open the door. Okay, right now, if we see, okay, we're not seeing, there's an alarm bell I look at. It's a 10-year yield. And the 10-year yield right now is at 4.41%.
Okay.
That's not alarming. It was 4.5 a week or two ago. Okay, it was 4.5 coming out of the FOMC, and it's come down. Okay, the bond market is not scared of Warsh.
No.
They're not.
It's kind of flattened though, right? The curve is kind of flattened a bit.
The curve is flattening, and if it becomes sharp, that'll mean that they need to cut, and it's going to be difficult to cut.
Okay.
One of the biggest alarm signals for a crisis is that the long end goes up. Long-term interest rates go up, and short-term rates don't follow, and you get this steep. They call it a steep curve. I'm optimistic, Bree. I'm very optimistic, but I do have a major concern for the data centers, and a real point. There are 2 points of major conflict: Virginia and Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia is close to Langley, okay? Langley is in Virginia. They've already got a gaggle of data centers. They're blocking them in Manassas, and it doesn't mean a twit. It won't stop 30, 40, 80 others. And there are already a bunch in Northern Virginia where it's not well populated, north of Roanoke. Arizona is a different problem because they're a desert community. They're going to drain the aquifers, and I expect Phoenix, Tucson, Scottsdale, Tempe, they're going to run out of water. And then you got a crisis. Then what happens? Or is that something that Trump wouldn't mind because they're Democrat stronghold? Okay, this is really going to get weird very fast. I tell you, we're in very interesting times. I don't like living in dangerous times. I like living in interesting times, and sometimes they're one and the same. I don't like that Chinese proverb. I just don't like it.
Well, in times like this, though, there are opportunities to make great wealth. At least we could see that as a positive. I do have one last question about the Fed.
You do?
Yes, I do. Okay, so I read somewhere a couple days ago that I guess since 2022, the largest buyer of treasuries is from offshore hedge funds based in the Cayman Islands. And I guess what happens if those leveraged buyers become forced to sell, especially with, what's going on with the AI bubble? That seems like that could be pretty problematic. And then I guess how else do we create enough treasury demand without starting QE?
Well, when you say Cayman, I immediately say Bank of England.
Okay.
So we have the British central bank buying our treasury bonds with a
Interesting.
very poor hidden cover. Okay, Bermuda, Cayman, that's Bank of England.
Okay.
And it
Okay,
has
that makes
been
sense.
for 40 years.
Okay.
If they're using leverage, then, more power to them. I wish them luck. It rarely works out well. I think we're due. I've been saying for 2 years, we're due for a Lehman times 5 event. But we're more prepared now because we endured that. And we're not going to let it happen. We have methods of printing money to cover debt that are very effective. I think the
Okay.
Exchange Stabilization Fund has been very active by revealing what they do to foreign nations. Rob Kirby was murdered. My colleague, Rob Kirby. I miss Rob. He was a real shining light. He was a scintillating personality. I spent 2 nights in his home for Toronto conferences, met his brother. he was too open about the exchange stabilization fund. I believe that the BRICS are dumping treasuries right now and buying gold. They're taking stablecoin, they're taking Tether. I don't think they're holding Tether. I think they're taking Tether and using Tether to buy other things, probably buying XRP. I think we're about ready to have a flashpoint with XRP. If it hits
Once clarity,
$1 or hits
once clarity
99
Act is passed.
cents, I think that's the bottom. A lot of weak hands are going to say, I've had enough of this, and they're going to get out. There'll be not exactly an explosion, but a bit of a climax for plebeians to sell out of XRP. I believe in 3 years or so, 2 or 3 years, there'll be very few private individuals holding XRP. They'll either dump, bail out, or get bought out at a low price, like saying, oh, I would love to sell for $8. It's $1.10 now, $1.20. There'll be a lot of people who sell at 5, 7, 8, 10, and they'll regret it when it's over 100. I believe that the Bitcoin maximalists are some of the biggest effing morons that have ever walked the planet, led by their king moron sailor. Bitcoin has no intellectual property. It has no direct usage in official financial firms. It's widely used in money laundering. It's related back to Epstein at the roots. Epstein probably made a fortune with Bitcoin. It has no headquarters.
And it's not private. Use Zano if you want privacy. If you want financial privacy, a lot of people think Bitcoin's private. It's not. It's all trackable. We're talking about the surveillance state. We need money that's separate from the government, money that is freedom money, and that's why coins like Zano are the future. If you really want to escape the control grid, you need to be using private money.
It's going to be hard to avoid detection and monitoring. I think it's really important to hang on to your golden, your wonderful asset like XRP, XLM, Solana. Hold on to them. Don't sell them. Just borrow against them. If you don't sell, you attract much less attention. You borrow against it when it goes up, borrow more against it, and pay off your old loan. And it's called laddered loans. Laddered loans, like using a ladder, climbing a ladder.
Similar to what people do in the stock market.
Well, that's what the wealthy do. They don't get rid of their IBM stock. They never sold their Microsoft stock.
Or what Elon Musk does.
They never sold their Google stock. They never sold their Tesla stock. Ask Elon Musk if he has sold many of his Tesla shares. He is not. He talks about laddered loans. I heard that was several months ago. I'm excited about what's coming, but it's going to be pretty dangerous for the middle class. And for those who like to keep their head in the sand and not follow what's going on, they're going to just have to walk through minefields of ignorance. And it's the nature of the beast when people just don't want to follow what's going on. As Mark Twain said, full of wisdom, it's harder to convince someone they've been fooled than to fool them. Mark Twain was one of the genius of our times.
Yeah.
He was one of my dad's favorite.
Thanks for joining, and I'll have you on again. You, like I said, you're my favorite guest to have on. I always love talking with you.
I just love being on your show, and it's golden-jackass.com. I have loads of time for consult calls. I realize this is a very difficult economy. I realize that. I hear it all the time. And sign up for the newsletter. Sign up for a consult call. Make a donation if you're wealthy. Support my cause.